Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Doing great.
Doing
All
great.
right. All right. Welcome to another OGGN live stream we have going on here. Today, we'll another episode of OGGN Presents, sponsored by Stratus Technologies. And today, we will be talking about the subject on the whole, everybody's talking about this in oil and gas is the whole IT and OT convergence that's happening and digital transformation. It's another hot topic, so we're going to probably touch base on that. But before we get into it, let me introduce some of our panelists here. We have Scott Williams from Wonderware West. How you doing, Scott?
Doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Just wanted to see, could you just give us a little bit of your background and just so we can know a little bit more about you?
Absolutely. I've been working in the oil and gas industry for the past 25 years or so. On both sides of the fence, I've done work as a system integrator. I've worked in upstream, I've worked in downstream. Here lately, for the past 6 months, I've been working with Wonderware West as their solutions architect for oil and gas. And my role here is to work with customers like the oil and gas people in upstream, downstream, and midstream, and help them address their challenges and their initiatives and help them achieve their goals utilizing the Aviva software. And so I'm here as a helper to the sales organization and to help customers design solutions that add business value.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm sure your input on our conversation will be very greatly appreciated, and we're going to dig your insights for sure. Next, we have Corey Allemond from Stratus Technologies. How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing great.
You can please give us, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the director of oil and gas for Stratus Technologies. What does that mean? It means we're a technology company, basically build servers for mission critical applications. So we take data wherever data needs to go and provide it in a redundant, virtualized way to make it always available, always on. My background is in telecommunications, networking, automation, power electronics, everything around the oil and gas field. Been in oil and gas for more years than I'm going to say. And because then Michael will make fun of me about being old. I've done everything from topside power solutions for drilling, worked in the offshore environment doing automation and controls for production systems, pipeline, power electronics. When it comes to talking about technology in the oil and gas space, it's a real passion of mine. It's something I really can like to getting into these geeky conversations about oil and gas. So just excited to be here, and let's make this fun.
Heck yeah. All right, thanks a lot, Corey. And last but not least, we have our OGGN's very own Michael O'Sullivan. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Thanks, Hyro. Yeah, I just, I know I wasn't really advertised to be on this particular show.
But it's a nice surprise.
Tonight.
Sorry, you cut out there.
I think I may be lagging. Are you guys?
Yeah. All right.
I think I might have some technical issues. I'm going to drop out, jump back, carry on. All right.
Cool.
Okay, sure. Yeah, take your time, Mike. I guess I'm Jairo Garcia, and I am new to the OGGN team. And so I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be hosting this exhilarating conversation. I'm excited about it. All right, so I guess to start us off, Corey and Scott, I guess, what do you guys think about this whole IT, OT conversion? What does it mean to you exactly? Can you describe it in your own words? We'll let Corey go first.
Sure. So when I think about IT, OT convergence, I primarily think about things that have been going on in the data center or the control center. When it comes to oil and gas or pipelines, you think about pipeline operations in the command and control center. You think about virtualization, redundancy, always on power compute, things, big data applications, maybe real-time data applications. That's really been in existence in oil and gas for a long time, but it's been mainly limited to areas with real controlled environment. And so when we think about the IT/OT convergence, I think about taking that technology and bringing it out to the operating environment. So, can we bring virtualization to the edge? Can we build redundancy that's inside of a cabinet? Can we bring server type capacity to a field cabinet to run real-time applications on an enhanced oil recovery application, for example? And the great thing about it is, as we've all been in oil and gas, looking at this digital journey, digitalization, digital transformation, Industry 4.0, all these others kind of things that it's known by, really that's the goal, right? To get more data, more information, so that we can make decisions faster or better, improve performance, reduce downtime. I mean, there's a huge focus around operational expenses, and the ability to take some of these control center IT type tools and bring them to the edge and apply them in an operations environment, which has traditionally been the automation environment, and really see where that takes us from an OpEx stand with the organizations as we begin to actually employ these predictive maintenance tools and other things around operational efficiency that can really make sure that we're operating assets as efficiently as possible. That's kind of a long-winded answer, sorry, but
no, it's all good.
That's kind of what runs through my head when I think about IT in the OT space.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Scott?
Absolutely. And I'll just add to what Corey said, and that, for the past, decade or more, this merging of IT and OT technology has been occurring. And there's OT technology was kind of jumping the fence a bit into the IT realm, and the IT software was jumping the fence in the OT realm. And for a long time, they kind of stood apart. There wasn't a whole lot of bleeding over between the two areas. But once you started really hopping onto the, creating IP backbones within the SCADA environment, between the operational environment, Ethernet radios, putting servers, like Corey was saying, virtual machines and virtual servers out in the field, all of a sudden you had this jumping of the fence, and you had these devices that looked like an OT device but felt like an IT device. And so IT kind of came in and said, hey, our expertise is in managing networks and managing communications, and we should be doing that for the OT side as well. And so you had this merging of IT and OT technologies. And also IT had these tools that seemed to fit to address issues that OT had. And OT had tools that IT thought, were outdated. And so they kind of started merging the two. And when that occurred, you had this difference of, what operations needed versus what IT thought operations needed. And so you had this kind of struggle for a long time about how do you merge those two? Where does each one fit? And like Corey was saying, the hardware has now caught up. You have this hardware that does both. The Stratus hardware does a very good job of bridging the fence between the OT and IT. And the software technology as well has now evolved and now can jump the fence and ride that middle layer of merging the needs of IT with the needs of OT and making it successful. And this is kind of where the edge stands out. It's definitely the merging of IT and OT at the edge. It's definitely in the field, but it utilizes all the same technology that IT has been utilizing. And so when we start getting the edge, you really start seeing where that merging is occurring. And to be successful, you got to use the right tools, and you got to understand the challenges that you're going to face when you get there.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Before we go forward, quick comment to the audience. If throughout our conversation anybody has any questions, please feel free to type it in. And whenever we get a little pause, I'll go ahead and pose these questions to our SMEs here. Now that we're talking about the convergence in oil and gas, you guys are on the forefront of this. What do you think are the biggest challenges that these oil and gas companies are facing when trying to get more digitally involved?
Well, one of the things that comes to mind first off is you're thinking about expanding network architecture to incorporate these new applications at the edge, but you're resource constrained because we're in a low cost environment. So how do you expand your network architecture and infrastructure, which typically would mean more IT resources, while you're at a time and place with today's prices that you really can't add additional resources. So I think one of the things you have to look to is architecture that can be managed, supported remotely, and is also engineered and designed to be simple enough to be supported by the existing staff who's supporting the automation or the electrical assets on that site. So basically trying to create a plug and play environment, if you will, at the edge with these, traditional IT server type equipment that doesn't like that type of environment, but engineering a resource that is designed to exactly do that by creating an IT server resource that is able to be serviced by operations type people. That allows you to then envision, how can I expand my infrastructure to support these integrated applications at the edge without necessarily immediately adding headcount to support these new IT resources. That's kind of been the oxymoron thing, right? I want to build out my network infrastructure and increase my capacity, but I can't add IT people. So how do I do that? Right. So that's one of the things that, has been at the forefront of the engineering design besides some of the platforms. How do we create platforms that are capable of operating at the remote environment with not necessarily IT personnel to support those platforms? And by creating an environment and a platform that is simple to operate, simple to understand, and build that plug and play type environment, you can then have a stable platform that you can expand all these applications to, that you don't necessarily need to add additional resources to support. And I'll let Scott jump in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, what we're seeing in the industry is there's a large demand for data, right? As the industry is downsized and as they need to become more efficient, they're looking toward technology to solve a lot of those issues. They're looking to do analytics with the data. They're looking to prevent downtime, prevent failures by analyzing the data and seeing where the failures are going to occur. And all these initiatives that they're doing requires more and more data from the field. And what we're finding is that data can't just be, it's not just more data, it's also higher quality data coming in. And that's kind of goes against what they're trying to do, right? So you've got that bandwidth limited areas in the field. You want more data, you want higher quality data. It needs to be done with fewer resources. So all these factors, they kind of go against each other. So to do this, people are implementing edge device technologies to bring in that data, bring in higher quality data, higher amounts of data by putting these edge devices close to the data source, doing these calculations they need to do at the edge, and they're moving this data up into their traditional SCADA systems or to the cloud using the Industry 4.0 protocols that Corey was mentioning. And these Industry 4.0 protocols are all designed to report by exception, lower the bandwidth utilization of the protocols so that you can get more data, high quality data with the same infrastructure. At the same time, if you're moving to these edge devices, you're not just putting one or two out there, you're doing it at scale. You're going to implement, hundreds or maybe even thousands of these devices to try and capture this enhanced data, or even these IoT devices that you're putting in the field. And so you have to have a management solution around those devices that require a ton of resources to manage. So the hardware is one aspect, and it has to be robust. It has to be manageable at scale, but the software also has to be robust and manageable at scale. And when you choose a solution for this, choosing the right software and hardware that have management capabilities is very important to not increase your workload versus decreasing your workload. The right solution will actually decrease your workload versus the other way. And that's what you're really looking for.
Yeah. Sounds pretty, sounds like you guys have experience in this and you guys know where the real challenges are. And then me being in the oil and gas industry for the last 10 plus years, I've noticed that, oil and gas, might be one of the last industries or one of the ones behind that are kind of coming up to this digital transformation. Do you think that the oil and gas industry is, are they accepting this digital transformation quick enough to keep up with, technology advancements? I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll actually answer that one first. So, before last year, oil and gas companies had tried to address these issues. Some companies had success, some companies had failure, and some companies had success but didn't see the business value. And so they put some of these projects on hold. They slowed them down. But last year, with the challenges that hit us, the combination of the pandemic and the oil price drop, the oil industry really decided to ramp up their initiatives to move in this direction to address these issues. The pandemic and the oil price drop made it very clear that automation and digital transformation was the key to the future, and a lot of these projects got accelerated to implement them, both on the hardware side and the software side. And I'm sure Corey can attest to that a lot of interest was driven last year on how to do this, how to do it at scale, how to do it quick, be able to pilot small but ramp up fast, right? And so we really saw an increase in interest in projects last year, and that's rolled through this year. What do you think, Corey?
Oh yeah, I think you're right on the mark there. So, a couple of things that I'll just different viewpoints, right? So, data in oil and gas. Well, that's a really interesting topic because there was big data in oil and gas before Google existed. So let's not lose sight of the fact that we've been passing large amounts of data in the oil and gas space for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to experience some of the advances in automation through my career with remote operations and doing things in production environments that no one ever thought we could do in the offshore space. So technology has long been a lever for the oil and gas industry to optimize operations, whether that be around cost reductions or improved performance. I think there's always been some hesitancy to move towards too much digital. But that is a trend that I think Scott hit right on the head that really just shifted last year. Instead of being, a multiple year kind of things are going to advance slowly and we're going to see how this goes. I think that the fact that, we were all locked down and we couldn't meet face to face and we couldn't go to a lot of places and build a lot of stuff, we quickly had to figure out what's the best way to do this where people can keep their hands off of it. And so that brought along a pretty rapid deployment of a few different technologies last year. And I don't see that changing. I think that we're going to see more. I've even heard folks who I have talked about for a long time, but folks actually talking about the autonomous operations now, which in the oil and gas space for a long time, that's been kind of the way to not get technology advanced in the oil and gas space. But there are things, when I go back a few years, I can think of simple processes like, starting a pipeline pump. The operator used to have to open a valve, start a pump, prime the pump, open the other valve, then maybe shut down the inlet valve on the next pump and shut that pump down while the new one was ramping up. It wasn't so many years ago that became a push button exercise. And we completely automated all those things. And that type of advancement brought along efficiencies, but there was, now by today's scale, those are minor efficiencies. But the ability to do other operations autonomously with the reliability that we have of the platforms and the networks and the infrastructure, I can see that, we're ready as an industry to move to the next level of advancement, where we look at real-time efficiency of assets and make decisions on maintenance based on reductions in efficiency instead of just a date on the calendar, where we are running assets and making decisions on what pump station to start and what pump station to stop based on the utility bills and the various regions and the utility rates that we're paying and across the longevity of the pipe. So I think there's a lot of technology and a lot of smarts that are available for us as an oil and gas industry to employ and take advantage of and really get, a better idea and a better understanding of what exactly it takes to operate these systems in the new kind of technology environment, if you will.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, and that the oil and gas industry, like you said, has tons of data, and it has for a long time. And some of this data is siloed, and in different systems have really very critical information that has had great use. But what we're seeing now is the combining of that data with real-time data, taking your financial data, taking your environmental data, taking your plant maintenance data, combine that with your real-time information coming from the field, and adding context to that data, and creating this kind of unified operations center view of all the information, whether it's your operations, whether it's your emissions, whether it's your financial and your targets. There's value in combining the data with context so that you can see the full scope of what's going on in your operations. And I think that's leading up to that autonomous operations that Corey was talking about, and be able to not only operate your field by exception, maybe moving to the point where a lot of the normal issues that occur during operations can be handled automatically, either by pattern matching or just by just coding in the response to certain conditions, but also be able to have a holistic view of your field and your data and your operations so that you can see what's going on in the industry.
Yeah.
And just to add one more statement before
go
Michael, the things that Scott are saying, these kind of sound like they're futuristic things, but these are real, and these are applications that you can deploy today. Real-time optimization on cost basis for like a refinery, for example, which products to produce because today's value is higher on that product line versus the other product line, or the utilization on that product line is higher than the other utilization, and making daily changes on raw materials to figure out what's the best profit margin for us to produce today. That's happening today. So these things are not futuristic developments that we're talking about. These are actual existing tools that can be deployed and be employed in this industry to explore the bounds of where we can go as far as lowering operating costs related to fixed costs for products.
Absolutely.
But do you feel most of the oil and gas companies, do you think they're accepting all of these changes coming up pretty readily, or is there some pushback?
Can I get this one?
Sure.
Yes.
You guys are punishing me because I had to
Tag, you're
I got kicked out. And forget about it. So you had your chance. So I don't know. You might have covered this one while I was restarting everything, but there's a culture thing, right? So like all the stuff that you guys are discussing it's true. Like people are really doing it. It's really happening. We have the technology, right? We have what's the old thing? Like we can build all this stuff. But Jairo, your question about are they accepting it? It was just not long ago in a previous life for me. I was like you guys, trying to run around and convince people that they can do these things. And one of the things that I think people still have issues with is the culture, the clash between IT and OT. And it's not just, even when people are get over the whole sort of mental aspect of it, right? Where they're from two different worlds and everything. There's still this problem of, okay, there are already computers. And Corey, you and I talked about this on a podcast one time, but like there are already computers out there doing stuff that are running these systems, and those environments are fragile, and historically we try to keep people away from them because if you do the wrong thing and something goes down and bad things happen, and there's a lot of risk. So historically the OT people were kind of like, all right, I know how to run this thing. I know how to, don't touch that and don't touch that and keep and whoa, now all these IT people come in. You want to and we got these great ideas, right? We want to come in and hook up all this stuff to get all this data. And they're like, well, wait a second. Like you can't just come in here and start hooking stuff up. We got security to worry about. We got uptime to worry about. We got all these things. So I have seen a lot of companies where even though the intentions are there, they're still they have trouble figuring out how to move forward and get past those cultural differences. There are still people in refineries who are supporting those systems who are very leery of virtualization, right? And you can't really do a lot of this stuff until you start to virtualize some of those older systems and get them running on the infrastructure alongside, the new services. All the new stuff comes in, and it requires microservices, and it requires containers and all this stuff to be able to talk to the cloud. But meanwhile, you've got some old control system that has to run on that computer because that's the one that has like the serial port on the back of it that connects to those things. So I think I think there are people out there who are still up against those challenges. So you guys are out there in the thick of it, but I think maybe if we can comment on how you're helping people get past that would be really probably useful to folks.
Yeah.
You want to go first, Scott?
I just threw it out there. You guys have to solve the problem.
You go, Corey.
I don't know what the solution is.
No, I mean, I can tell you, I've walked into those places and seen those setups, and I'm sure Scott has as well. And the environment where the computer is still running with the right plugin on the back, and that's the only one we can use for this automation system because
don't move it.
We can't run with those ports anymore. So don't touch that.
Yeah. Last time somebody moves it, bad things happen, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's real world. That exists, unfortunately. And you're right. To go from that type of environment into an analytics-driven, optimized performance is like a leap and a bound.
Right.
And the small steps into doing that, you're right. One of the first things is figuring out, can we virtualize the application, which will probably require some hardware upgrades. And
if only we knew somebody who had that kind of hardware.
If only we knew somebody who could do that kind of stuff. I might know some folks who could help. I mean, but when you think about I was looking at a use case the other day. When you think about downtime, for one company, they went to a virtualized environment from an old environment like you're describing. They went through a whole automation upgrade and went from 88% availability on their compressor stations to 99.5% availability on their compressor stations. You know how many millions of dollars that is?
That's huge. Yeah.
That's huge.
The automation and software is a drop in the bucket compared to the millions of dollars that they saved by, basically making that move to accept the technology and move forward. And I think, I see a lot less of the computer in the corner with the right connector on the back of it.
That's just my favorite example to drag out.
I'm sure Scott can tell you the same thing I can. I've been in those offices where you got to pull the side panel off the computer and go find the blower to blow the dust balls out of the computer.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that condition still exists, but I think if you want to be in the conversation today, and you want to be operating that company 3 years from now, you have got to start looking at what you can do with these new technologies, because the night and day from an uptime and availability for that one customer example. I mean, that's millions of dollars in savings annually, plus improved performance and reliability. And I mean, there's just it's what we're going to as an industry, and I don't know. I say everybody has to jump on board. I think everybody eventually will jump on board. Some people will be pulled, but the industry as a whole, I see this technology being, this is the next evolution of the industry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead, Scott.
So one thing I'll comment on that is, it's the old paradigm. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So if it's over in the corner, it's working. Just make sure you have enough spare parts to keep it working. But I think also it's also an area where people try to pitch software because of technology's sake, And so you go into these customers that have this older technologies, older servers, the serial ports, and they get pitched this new shiny new thing without really addressing the business value. So everything Corey was just talking about, he was talking about the business value, the savings, the uptime. I think a lot of times we miss talking about that aspect of technology, because technology is just a tool. It's not the end game. It's a way for a company to add value, to reduce their cost, to increase their production, and bottom line is increase their profit, right? And so when we approach these things, I think, from a vendor side, from a software side, we have also been adapting to all this new technology and learning how, it's not about the technology. It's not about what can it do. It's how can it add value to your business? How can it help reduce your maintenance costs? How can it help improve your production? And so it's all about that, right? It's not about the technology itself. We have to switch how we talk to customers, how we approach these older customers who have older technology, and show them that here is a path forward and this is what it means for you.
Yeah, obviously it's about solving a challenge. And I think if the technology doesn't solve the challenge, then it's not for you.
Exactly.
And it's not technology for technology's sake. It's technology to solve issues and advance operations and reduce cost and improve performance and increase safety and, all the other things we as an industry seek to do each and every day, improve environmental performance, increase safety of personnel. And yes, at the end of the day, we want to increase the bottom line. So all of those things are going to be accomplished through technology. I mean, if you look at the things, going back to employing things like, was it the automated roughneck, that robot that they started deploying years ago? I mean, what was that done for? Was it technology for technology's sake? No, it was to get people's hands and fingers out of the areas where they were losing them. So, so I mean, as an industry, I think we seek out solutions to problems that improve performance, whether that be environmental or safety, and at the end of the day, make us more efficient. And I see that these solutions and technologies are the help. They are the lever that can help you move forward as an organization.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think so to that point, and to and to the question that we got, I think, and to my rant about the cultures clashing and all that, you have to get, so it is happening, it's going to happen, everybody's going to do it, right? So the question is, are you going to get it done in the window where it creates the value and you still maintain your competitive advantage? So you have to get all the people around the table to talk. And, we have this thing in the oil and gas industry, like everybody knows that we struggle with these silos, and everybody knows that the silos are there, and everybody shakes their head and says, we have silos. Like it's time to break down, like forget about all of the fancy technical stuff. You got to put the same people from all the different concerned groups in the room and have them start working together. I know there were so many times that I'd be talking with somebody from one group, let's say a particular CIO for a particular refining company that I was having a conversation with, and he said, well, this is exactly what we need to do, but you got to convince those guys over there, right? And just to get a meeting with those guys over there was almost impossible, right? Because they're like, I don't want to hear about this. Like that, somehow leadership has to step in and say, we're going to move past all this and all these handoffs and all these silos, and we do our thing and you do your thing, and you're going to bring people around the table. Everybody's going to be open-minded, really understand how this stuff works, what's it going to do for us, and then put, the right, we love to put together tiger teams too, right? And tiger teams sit in rooms and have meetings over and over and over again. And, we have to actually have teams of people with leadership that can go out and get this stuff done. And if you do that, then all the stuff that you guys are talking about is entirely doable. It's not impossible at all.
No, I think, you make a really good point. There was some, was it CERA week was last week? There was a couple of CEOs, they made point to mention about the advancements in technology, and that they look to invest more in technology to bring more to their organization. So, I mean, I think the message is starting to resonate at the highest levels. And I think, you're absolutely right. If you're having the conversation with the wrong folks that don't see the value or don't understand how to achieve the value, then you're never going to get across that bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does take the conversation to happen between the operational asset owners as well as the IT and infrastructure owners to understand what is possible and what can be done, and how can you make this a reality instead of just something people talk about.
Right. And they have to understand each other's world and appreciate each other's concerns instead of just saying, well, those guys are ridiculous, right? And and the other one saying, like, I mean, I don't want to. So we don't want to call anybody out, but I could play the role of making the jokes about the other side on both sides. I know what the jokes are over here that are made about that side, and I know what the jokes are over here that are made about that side. So that has to stop, and both sides have to realize that each side has legitimate objectives and concerns, and those things can be harmonized, but everybody has to actually understand each other and work together. It's what's that old saying about, like, everything I need to know in life I learned in kindergarten?
Yeah, I
like
think
we both need to be at the station or whatever it is and work together.
Yeah, you're really close, because I've had those conversations where they talking to the heads of the automation, and they're like, so you can come in and replace all these IT computers and then I'll own them all. Well, yeah, we could do that, but that's not going to be a solution for you.
Right.
Because at some point we still have to connect.
Yeah.
and having those types of siloed and hard lines inside of organizations is something that has to be overcome. Absolutely. And we talk about proof points or pilot engagements, or we're not talking about proof of technology. A lot of times we're talking about proof of analysis or proof of profit, where we'll do a small deployment and show exactly what we're talking about, and then you can extrapolate from there what it could mean to your entire organization. So there's small engagements. And that's usually the way to be successful in these type of digital efforts. Pick something that is achievable, that is practical, that is maybe the low hanging fruit, if you will, and go after it and prove it and show it, and then you can extrapolate and expand on that into the entire organization. So maybe one asset, maybe one station, maybe one platform, and then build from there. So those are, it's not all at once. And unfortunately, a lot of digitalization efforts fail because they approach it as an all at once. Mm-hmm. And it's really impractical to do in an operating environment. You have to do it in bits and bytes, and you have to do it in small steps. And it's absolutely scalable, but you can't do it all at the same time. Right. It's completely impractical.
Yep. And you gotta look at too that, we talk about the working together between IT and OT. Today's projects aren't on one side of the fence. People are trying to get data from the field into the cloud, and you can't do that purely by operations. You can't do that purely in IT. So the two have to work together. And digital transformation is about people, process, and technology. And in my experience, it's the people and process part that's the most complicated and takes the longest amount of time and longest amount of training and interaction to get right. You can throw technology at a problem, but without the people and the process to follow it, it's never going to succeed. And these projects that's
always the case.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that I'll throw one more thing in there, and I'm going to tee this one up for you guys as a softball. So, but I really believe it's true, which is, and we've talked about this. This has come up quite a few times on the Oil and Gas Tech Podcast. The industry is people in the industry are becoming more open to learning and understanding from other people, even people outside the industry, and how are they solving similar problems? How are people in finance solving these problems? How are people in other, in manufacturing solving these problems? So I think in addition to getting all the people around the table, and like Scott said, the process and all that is you need to find some good partners outside that you can work with that know their stuff, that have good technology, that have good consulting ability, and that you can trust, because they're going to help you learn what other people are doing and where other people have had success. And then that way you're not going to make the same mistakes and bang your head against the same walls and all that stuff. So, you know, I think it's important to find some people, you know, who are not just going to try to sell you something, but really want to work together with you to help you succeed. So that leaves these two guys out. But if you can find some people out there who want to do that, then I think it's critical. I think it's gonna help to learn from the outside world in this particular case.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. And as a technology provider in the oil and gas space, you know, I would say you want technology that is proven across multiple industries. Because,
Sure.
you know, when we think about discrete process, you know, in factory optimization, people for a long time have said, well, you can't do that in the oil and gas space. Well, you can't directly lift it from one and move it into the other, but we are talking about controlling processes, and we are talking about controlling recurring processes. So there are some things that we can learn, that we can carry from one industry to another industry, so that, exactly like you said, we're not making the same mistakes that we made on day one, because we've already proven that out somewhere else. You know, and we, you know, Stratus really is involved in providing platforms for mission critical data in many industries over the past 40 years. So the jump of providing a mission critical platform in the oil and gas space is not a leap for what it is that we do. But it is something new in a lot of spaces inside oil and gas. But it's proven technology. And like you said, we're actually taking proven technology that has been proven
Right.
out and built in other industries and saying that has a direct application in the oil and gas space, because data is absolutely critical in this operation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think you also want to talk to vendors and people that are willing to listen, you know, find out what is your challenge, what you're challenged with, what your opportunities are, what your goals are, and listen first, and then provide solutions second. Because often software companies and vendors, they come up and say, hey, this is a solution to your problem. This right here will do everything you want it to do. It'll fix all your issues. But you have to listen first and really understand what the business imperatives are, what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, and what is their desired outcome. What does success look like for them? And like Corey was saying, you know, Windward West has been doing oil and gas for decades, along with Aviva and the Windward software. But it's not just oil and gas; it's across many industries. And there's definitely technology that starts bleeding over that provides value. You know, we're talking about the Industry 4.0 protocols, and you know, I think the buzzword today is in a lot of areas is MQTT and Spark-Plug-B. But that's not new technology; it's new to oil and gas. But it's been around for a very long time, and it's used under industries. And so it's prime examples of bringing technology that's been successful in other areas and applying it to the challenges of oil and gas today. And picking software vendors that have a broad scope and broad appealing to a variety of different industries is critical, because you get that experience, and you get the experience not only in your area, but that cross marketing, that cross industry experience that you need in order to come up with new ideas and new solutions.
So, yeah, this is all, you know, guys are hitting everything on the nail, and I'm, you know, understanding everything you're saying. But for, let's say, companies out there who are looking to, you know, provide these sort of scalable digital solutions, what kind of factors do you think they need to, you know, be looking out for when, you know, considering these things?
Well, I mean, I'll take that first. I would say, you know, some of the things like simple to operate, simple to understand, simple to install. You know, that because you're putting this in a remote environment in the faraway places where you necessarily don't have IT personnel available to go flip a switch or troubleshoot a server, you need to have something that you know is going to be reliable. it also has to be simple to understand and simple to install, so that the automation guy can has enough understanding of the application where he can do some minor plug and play type environment stuff, and then having the stuff being protected, so redundant is the next thing that comes to mind, and then protected as well as cybersecurity, because as we've been talking about data and applications and all these other things, we haven't really touched on cybersecurity yet, but that has to be inherent to the application and inherent to the platform. So the ability to whitelist, blacklist, some firewall capabilities, things of that nature built into the platform. These things are important. And then autonomous, having the platform that is redundant operate in a fashion that will allow it to alleviate outages. In other words, the platform is smart enough to know that I may be having problems, so I'm going to switch to my primary node or my secondary node. Or in some cases, we can actually use nodes that have issues on it, but route around them, depending on which platform we're using. So the incorporating the data analytics tools into the server platform itself. So notifying someone before something that may be an issue ever becomes an issue. So really running predictive analytics on the platform in the real-time environment, and then the ability to notify, whether it be the control center, support staff, or a call home feature inside of the platform, so that these types of things will give you a platform that you can install in a remote environment, and will, as our customers say, let you know that you can sleep at night, because the data is always going to be there and always available.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on top of all that, you got to choose a platform that's flexible. There's a lot of different architectures out there, and no company, oil and gas company today, is going to go all one way or all another way. They're not going to rip and replace. They're not going to invest that kind of money. So you need a platform that's flexible, that can be used in a variety of different ways. You may have an environment where you've got a traditional SCADA system, you're collecting data from your PLCs and RTUs straight to the SCADA system, and from there you're freeing it up to the enterprise and ultimately into the cloud. And alongside that SCADA system, you may need to install standalone IoT devices, and this data doesn't need to be used by SCADA, so it's going to go straight somewhere else. It's going to bypass the SCADA system. May go straight to the enterprise. It may go straight to the cloud, and you may have a hybrid where you've got an edge device out there collecting that data as well. So you need to be flexible. You need to be able to accommodate all the different architectures that are out there, so that you're not forcing a customer into one way or the other, because they're going to need to be flexible. They're going to need to be able to accommodate all these different ways of doing things. And so you need a software platform or a hardware platform that can sit alongside other architectures and just take that data and send it to where the customer needs to go. And this software needs to be flexible, and the hardware needs to be flexible in what you can do with it. Maybe you're only collecting data and you're sending that data up. Maybe you need to do some hardcore calculations at the edge. So you need a hardware that can handle that performance. And maybe you need a virtualized hardware. Maybe you need to have components. You need to be able to address all these issues, and you choose the right hardware and software platform that can be flexible is key to being successful. And you need to be able to manage them both. Like I said earlier, you're not going to just if you're successful, you're not just going to have one or two devices out there. You're going to have hundreds of devices out there, and you don't want it to die because of scale. And so you need to make sure that whatever you choose can scale up and has the management software behind it to be able to support that kind of scale without creating a maintenance nightmare.
Right. Yeah, and they also want to be, I'm assuming, want to be looking into the future and what future technologies are, coming about, and making sure that they're adaptable as well. Right? Is that something you touched on as well, right?
Absolutely. And I've always told customers, you may be thinking of doing one thing today, but this hardware you're not going to switch out this hardware in 3 years when you decide to do more. So when you go and choose a path and choose hardware and software, you need to look 5, 6, 7 years down the road, because you're not going to want to change these out. And that's one of the biggest problems with oil and gas, is implementing hardware in the field. It's expensive, it's time consuming, requires quite a bit of resources. So you want to choose a hardware platform that you don't have to switch out every 3 years, and you want to choose a software platform that can grow, and you want to make sure that the memory, the hard drive space, and all those performance components can grow with you and not force you to replace it just because you decide to do analytics at the edge 3 years from now instead of 2 years from now.
All right. It looks like we have a question on LinkedIn from Manny Gato. Says, what has changed within the industrial control systems world as far as cybersecurity?
Yeah.
Anybody want to take this?
So I can tee this one up, and then you guys can add all of your the goodness that your platforms bring. But I think that it's and the question said it used to be that it was a second thought, and this comes up on the podcast as well, on the tech show, which is, it used to be if you wanted to hack into a pipeline, you had to go out to where the pipeline was, right, and drill a hole in the side of it or something like that, or some facility. And now it's scary because we have all of these. Have you done that, Corey? Do you have?
He's got some experience in that.
Maybe.
and now it's scary because everything's connected. Everybody wants to put we don't just have sensors on everything that are connected back to that computer that's got the serial port on the back, but now everybody wants everything to be on the internet, and not the internet on the internet, but connected, to your infrastructure. And so there are a lot of so the point is that this is people have woken up to this, to what do we do about this, and there are some great solutions out there. There's a lot of people. It comes up on the tech show, on the Oil and Gas Tech podcast a lot. So I don't think it's an afterthought anymore. I think people are thinking about it. There's a whole bunch of people out there trying to market solutions for it. It's finding its way into the conversation. That's as much as I know. I don't know what the best way is I just know that smart people are working the problem. Maybe you guys know more about it than that.
Smart people are working the problem. And I could say that from a software standpoint, that if you choose the right software platform, the security is the foundation of the product. They're using certificates, they're using TLS 1.2. They're every component that talks is encrypted. And so it's security from the foundation. And I can't say that all software does that today, but the top software vendors and the top hardware vendors build that into it from the ground up. So you don't have the issues that we had, a decade ago, where it was an afterthought, where things were isolated. It wasn't really concerned. Now it's a big issue, and all the companies are supporting it and really, really making firewall-friendly protocols. They're talking to IT departments. They're talking to OT departments. They're making their software compatible, and the protocols that are coming out today are all security sensitive.
Right.
Yeah, and I think to think about the security in the ICS, the philosophy for many years was just the industrial control network never touches the corporate network, or the industrial control network never touches the internet. And now we're looking at cloud, and we've got remote networks, and we've got obviously a lot of these applications around scale and things of that nature. So, like Scott said, security is engineered into the foundation of all these devices nowadays. It's built into the platforms from I would say from starting with the firewall capabilities, or what I said earlier, whitelist, blacklist, access control, locking down ports. I mean, there's a lot of engineering thought behind the firmware and the hardware around security. And then, of course, that may lead you to think about the next thing, the patch and update cycle, because that's been the challenge, right? If we're going to deploy computers in the network, then how do we handle patch and updates? Well, that's part of that remote capability that Scott mentioned earlier. When you find the right platform, they've got to be able to manage patch and updates remotely, because once you get to scale and you've got hundreds of devices deployed, you can't have folks run around the country doing patch and update.
Yeah,
So
and you can't not patch. You have to patch.
exactly.
Yeah, right.
You have to do the patches, but you have to be able to do them remotely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, guys, looks like we're coming up on our last few minutes. I just wanted to ask you guys if you have any closing remarks or comments on the whole IT OT convergence. I know we covered a lot of ground today, but if you just want to give some closing remarks on what was discussed, now's your time.
I just want to say thanks to OGGN for having me. This is fun for me. So maybe I'm weird, but I enjoyed this. It's a great conversation. If anybody wants to know anything about what it is we talked about, just look us up on LinkedIn, and we'll continue the conversation.
Absolutely. And yeah, thanks again, OGGN, for having me on, and Corey for inviting me as well. And I think this particular platform is what we're missing in the industry, is just be able to talk and share ideas and share experiences and share our knowledge, so we can do a better job of automating and going down this digital transformation path. And I appreciate having me on.
I will say, Corey, you are a little weird, but I don't think that has anything to do with enjoying, because Hyro likes to do this and he's not weird, so I don't think that's I don't think that's it. But it's a great, this is a great topic, and it's I mean, people are starting to tackle it in earnest, I think, but I think there are still a lot of people out there who aren't sure how to move forward. They just don't know how to get all the parts of their organization, of their operation, kind of moving together in the right direction. So it is good that we have this kind of a platform for people to talk. And I will I'll do a shameless OGGN plug here and say that if you're watching and this is useful to you, and then you should tell other people about it, because the whole point, it doesn't, like, we're not helping anybody if nobody's watching. So,
Right.
And if you're watching this and it's not useful, then you don't have to tell anybody about it, but you should tell us so that we can do something differently and make it better.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining in today and spending an hour for your Thursday with us. Thanks, Corey and Scott. And then, of course, thank you, Michael, for coming in and providing us with some humor to go with the conversation. But
I
yeah,
understand. I read between the lines on that one. I get it.
But yeah, all right. Well, just to close it up, I'm going to say thank you, guys. I hope you have a good weekend, and maybe we'll be talking soon again.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye.
Thank you.